الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيد الأنبياء والمرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين أما بعد. يقول الله عز وجل: الذي خلق الموت والحياة ليبلوكم أيكم أحسن عملا وهو العزيز الغفور. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala states in this verse, the one who created death and life to test which one of you is best in actions, and He is Almighty, oft forgiving. And before beginning our khutbah, as is our habit, just a reminder, La Samahallah, if there is an emergency, please exit from the doors that have an exit sign above them. So if there is an emergency, please make sure that the door above which you are leaving has exit written above it. Returning back to the verse of discussion, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's statement, the one who created death and life to test which one of you is best in actions, and He is Almighty, oft forgiving. In this verse, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about how He will test all of us, and how He's going to test us in both our death and in our life. And this idea of testing is something that we will find consistently and constantly throughout the book of Allah Azza wa Jal and the sunnah of our Messenger Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam. And there is one huge test that is upon many of our children now, and that is the beginning of the new school year. And some of our children are transitioning. Some of them are going from elementary school to middle school, some of them from middle school to high school, and some of them from high school to college. And if we understand that these major changes are happening to and for our children, it's important for us to understand how to face those challenges, how to face those difficulties. Because the challenge in reality is twofold. There's a challenge for our children, the students, and it is a challenge for many of us as parents. Many of us are coming from other countries, and we ourselves are immigrants. We're unaware of some of the challenges that our children face, and for many of us, those challenges are unrelatable. And because we understand and know that, we need to know on how to deal with those challenges appropriately. Allah promises us and tells us, He says, "Al-malu wal-banuna zinat al-hayat al-dunya wal-baqiyat al-salihat khayrun 'inda rabbik thawaban wa khayru 'amala." That wealth and children are the attractions of this worldly life, but lasting good deeds carry a greater reward and give a greater hope. And some of the challenges that our students and children face in the schools today, and this is not limited to the United States. Sometimes we fool ourselves into thinking, oh, back home it's better. Back in our countries it's better. And I will promise you and I will tell you that the grass is always greener on the other side. And the challenges that we face here, there might be a few more, and they might be more amplified. But I can guarantee that these challenges run parallel in many of our Muslim countries. And the first of them, and sometimes the most difficult one to speak about, is sexuality. And a person had asked me, "Sheikh, when should I start sex education with my children?" And I said, from the moment that they speak. It is very important that we learn to address our children and tell them once they have shu'ur, once they have this idea of having a private area, that if anyone touches it, then you come and you tell me immediately. I don't care if it's your uncle, I don't care if it's your doctor, I don't care if it's your teacher, I don't care if it's a friend. We need to start developing that confidence from a young age, where our children are comfortable coming and speaking to us, and they're comfortable and proud that they have somebody who they can speak to, and they have the character to understand what their personal boundaries are. the most powerful weapon we can give our children in any society, not just this one. A lot of us like to badmouth America and the life here, but how many of us sacrifice to be here and come here? How many of us enjoy the lifestyles that we have today? How many of us enjoy the freedoms that are available to us? How many of us refuse to go back to our home countries? And if we understand that these freedoms are available, every freedom has responsibility associated with it. And if we know that these are challenges our children are facing, we need to know how to address them. If my child asks me a question, I cannot dismiss that question. I can't. If you ask me what is our failure as parents, our failure is that we were unable to answer our children's questions. We will tell them, say astaghfirullah. Go read Ayatul Kursi. You can't ask that question. It's haram, just accept it. This is not good enough, ya ikhwan. It's not. And the reason that I refuse to take my child to somewhere else, or the reason I refuse to ask someone else about the answer to the question, is because of my own ego. That's it. I don't want to look stupid. I don't want to look small. I don't want to belittle myself in front of my son or in front of my daughter. I guarantee that humility that we show with our children is more valuable than my ego. And if my child knows that I'm willing to say, I don't know, let's look it up, let's read into it, let me ask and I'll come back to you. Watch how the attitude of our children will change. Watch how the attitude of our children will change when I come to them and I told them I made a mistake. I told you this, but I looked it up and it's actually this. We need to instill humility in ourselves. Because when we instill humility in ourselves, and when we show it to our sons, our daughters, our wives, then they themselves will learn and understand on how to be humble. We wonder what the problem is with us and with our children. Our major, fundamental problem is our arrogance. I can guarantee that. People, oh, we don't pray, we don't do this, we don't do that. No. Our problem is our own personal arrogance. We refuse to ask. We refuse to listen. We refuse to have conversation. I am right. I don't need to hear anything else. Is this the values that we want to instill in our children? Is this how we want to grow up? When our parents didn't have answers for us, how did that make us feel? Then we have those expectations from our children that they need to blindly follow everything that we're telling them. And we also have this huge problem between understanding what obedience and disobedience and agreement and disagreement are. If my son or daughter disagrees with me, this is not disobedience. They are living in a different culture. They are living in a different environment. They are living with different challenges. Who is expected to understand? My child, who knows nothing about my culture, who knows nothing about where I'm from. The language that I speak to him is broken. The food which I eat to him is spicy. The places which I enjoy going are boring. They cannot relate to me, but I still expect them to. I expect them to act like a Kenyan, or a Palestinian, or a Pakistani, or a Libyan, or an Egyptian. Did I raise them like that? If I raised them like that, yes, I have that full expectation. But if I sent them to American schools, every time we had a function and we had to get together, yes, there would be kabsa, or there would be biryani, right? Or there would be couscous. But always, I can guarantee in every one of these functions, there will also be pizza. Why? Because the palate of our children has changed. They do not have the same taste that we do. They do not speak the way that we do. And there's nothing wrong with that. But the only people who need to truly understand and make an effort is us. Instead of making fun of our children for what they're watching and what they're wearing and how they have their hair, why don't we actually talk to them about courage, about loyalty, about honesty, about trustworthiness? If they are dressed like the rest of society within the Shari'i guidelines, why do we criticize? They are going to wear what they are comfortable in, just like I am going to wear what I am comfortable in. And if I understand that this is halal, my child, I guarantee, will have that same understanding. In the moment I start putting limitations on that, he or she is not going to understand. Allah has given us a pathway. He's given us a means. He tells us about the challenges that we all face. And He tells us He will test us. Many of us might be hearing about the different issues and different problems, homosexuality in schools, transgenderism in schools, right? We hear about dating, we hear about casual sex, we hear about sex education in and of itself. We hear about all these things. We complain to each other. But if I asked the Jama'at today, how many of you have attended, or how many of us have attended a parent-teacher meeting? How many of us will raise our hands? Am I expecting someone to advocate on behalf of my child? Am I expecting someone to speak on behalf of my son? Or should I be standing behind my son? Should I be standing behind my daughter saying, speak, tell them what you want? And I will tell them what I want. And I will tell them my problems. We forget that teachers, principals, school boards, superintendents, all of those people work for us. We don't work for them. And if they are my employee, I need to demand from my employee the services that I want. If I'm not happy with the service, I need to do something about it. I can't wait for Ahmed or Muhammad or Khalid or Khadija or Maryam. I need to act. And walillah alhamd, I live in a place where Allah has given me that opportunity. How many of us come from places where we can't challenge anything? We can't even say no. And now that Allah has given us the mas'uliyah, He's given us the responsibility, why do we fail to take it? Why do we wait for others to speak on my behalf? I am my best representative. Allah has told me and commanded me, قُوا أَنفُسَكُمْ وَأَهْلِيكُمْ now. Save yourselves and your families from the hellfire. I can't be responsible for my community. I can't be responsible for society. But it's easy for me to be responsible for me. It's easy for me to be responsible for my children. It's easy for me to be responsible for my parents. But how many of us have failed in that, and in turn failed our communities? We have support systems. We have networks. We have the money. We have the people. We have the power. The only thing stopping the Muslims from succeeding, it is not the West, it is not Israel, it is not Coca-Cola or Starbucks, it is not the president, it is not Russia. The only thing stopping from the Muslims from succeeding today are the Muslims. May Allah give us tawfiq. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيد الأنبياء والمرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين أما بعد. I know that we face many challenges, and sometimes those challenges can be overwhelming. Our children face issues of sexuality, substance abuse, and drug use, and alcohol use, and marijuana use. Our children face issues of alternative religions, atheism, agnosticism, leaving Islam. It is an identity now to be an ex-Muslim. I don't understand. If you really hate Islam and Muslims, why do you still make that a fundamental part of your identity? Identify as an atheist, or as agnostic, or as a Christian, or a Hindu, whatever. Why is it so fundamental that your identity is still attached to Islam? It's strange to me. But these are the problems that our children are facing. And the best way to help them with those problems is through building their character. I understand that we take precautions in our home. And someone had asked me once, Sheikh, what do I do to protect my children? I said, we can all build moats around our house and have water in those moats and cut off electricity. Forget internet, electricity. We can cut it off. There will come a day when my child will have to leave the home. What did I do to prepare him then? Al-husuna fil qalb. If I want to build a fortress, we have to build it here. We can't build it here. We can't. It's not going to work. I guarantee it'll fail. Giving my child the ability and teaching him or teaching her to say no, to stand up, say this is wrong. This is the strongest and best gift we can teach them. And we do that by listening to them, not by dictating. How many of us say, oh, I spend time with my kids, I ask them how school was, and our children, how dismissive are they? And they'll say it was good, and that's it. Did you hear anything strange in school today? Did something happen in school today? Did you make any friends? Tell me about your friends. These are questions that we should try to ask. If the only question I know is how was school, I've already failed. I've already failed. Tell me about your teachers. Did anything happen? Is there something you'd like me to know about? And we will see how open our children are. We just have to give them the chance. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us good parents, to make us good children. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give shifa, to give healing to all of those who are ill, to have mercy on all of those who have passed, to help all of those who are in any type of financial hardship, to help all of those who are in debt to come out of that debt. وأقول قولي هذا واستغفر الله لي ولكم ولسائر المسلمين كل ذنب خطيئة إنه غفور رحيم وأقم الصلاة.